Yeah. Those were a couple of my friends who just really wanted to make an intro for me, and they were like harassing me to put that in my video. Okay, so this video is going to be kind of like a book and movie review because I read the book and then I watched the movie like the day after I finished it or something. But this is mostly going to be a book review. I'll just put in like some thoughts about the movie here and there. So basically in the beginning of the book, she has a job, she loses her job, she needs another job, and she is able to find one as being like a caretaker for a paraplegic named Will, and it's basically the story of them. Well, them and like his family, her family. But if you've seen any of my other book reviews, I kind of just go through the tabs that I made in my book, and I just like read and discuss whatever it was that I tabbed. Start off, I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. It was such a great read. It was so, the writing was beautiful and poetic, and it flowed nicely, and the characters were rich and full of like life. Anyway, so on page 37, I just really liked this sentence: the morning sagged and decided to last for several years. I just think that's hilarious. Anyways, so 100 pages go by, and Louisa, she already has the job. So she finds out that Will actually wants to go through assisted suicide, so he no longer wants to live because he is just not living the life that he wants. He was a very adventurous and physical person when he wasn't in his wheelchair, and he just hates his life, being pitied on and being in a chair, not being able to move and not being able to do the things that he wants to do. So it was really interesting because on page 104, 105, something that I really liked about this book was the change of perspective with the characters, and I really love it when books do that, period. Okay, then a little bit later on, we learn more about Louisa, and we learn about what happened to her in the maze. So it turns out that poor Louisa was raped by several guys that she was with when she was younger, when she was about 20, I think. And so that's something that she has in her heart and is dealing with. And so, you know, time goes on, and Louisa's trying to have Will open up and to try and make him like go and do things. And so it's Louisa's birthday, and Will is kind of getting a liking to her. And I love this scene in the book and the movie when he decided to give her the bumblebee socks, and she just flips out. She loves that gift more than like anything. And so we all know that this book is like very sad, right? And I knew this going into it, and I kind of was spoiled on the ending, but not really. I just kind of guessed. And it wasn't really, I mean, the ending did make me cry, but it was like really subtle things that like made me tear up for whatever reason. Like the book made me cry way more than the movie, and that's not, that usually doesn't happen with me because I am like a sympathetic crier. So like if I'm watching something and somebody else starts crying or starts showing like emotion, then I will get emotional. So it's a little bit harder for me to do that with books just because I'm like reading it and I have to imagine it rather than like just seeing it. Do not get me wrong though, I will sob with books. And so one of these moments was when Louisa was sleeping and her nephew comes and like lays in bed with her, and she kind of just snuggles up with him. I was just like, that is so sweet. That is beautiful, and that like made me tear up a little bit. I don't know why. Okay, so then time passes more, page 247, and this is when like Louisa and Will are, you know, continuing to get to know each other more, and this part was a very like big part in their relationship, I feel like. And it's when Louisa finally, or not finally, but she tells Will about what happened to her, and he responded with such kindness and with such compassion and told her, you know, it's not your fault. So she starts saying, she's like, oh, well, I drank too much to show off, I was a terrible flirt, I was da-da-da. He's like, no, they were responsible. And, you know, he was saying it wasn't your fault and it was on them, and it's nothing that she should be ashamed of. Like, they should be ashamed of themselves. And that was a really like powerful part of the story and of the book in general, because anybody reading this, there could be a rape survivor that's reading this, and they could read this and learn from it and really have that resonate with them, and that could help heal somebody. So I really like that part of the book, that conversation that they had. Obviously not that what happened to Louisa, but the fact that Will was somebody that she could trust now. And then we continue on with more of their like romantic relationship, and Will is invited to his ex-girlfriend's and best friend's wedding because they decided to do that. So I did not like his friends. Like, you don't do that. Anyway, so he was invited to their wedding. He decides to actually go, and Louisa goes with him. And I think that was a good thing for Will to go through, because he was able to possibly heal from that. Like, he saw one part of his life moving on, and Louisa was also there with him, so it was almost like a comfort to him. And I really enjoyed that whole scene, and like when they were dancing together, it was just really nice, and it was just lovely. And so there was one part in the book that like really irritated me, and it was when we got into the perspective of Will's father. And so we know that he's cheating on his wife. We know he's being unfaithful. Their marriage is crumbling and has been crumbling for a while now. And so he, which is very obviously, has another woman. And so something that really irritated me and like really made me ashamed of his father was when he basically was saying that, you know, because of his son, he can't live the life that he wants with his mistress. Like, that's basically what it boiled down to. And that just really showed the kind of man that his father was. And I just had a new look on Will's father, because he tried to say, he's like, you know, I know like how that makes me sound, but you know, it's true. And his mistress honestly thought that they were going to have a new life, but then this happened to Will. It's like, I'm so sorry that your son had an accident and needs his mother and his father, and that became an inconvenience for you and the new life that you were planning with your mistress. Like, I am so sorry. Anyways, that was one thing that irritated me, and I was just like, dude. Okay, so then further on in the book, we know that Louisa, she's kind of getting into Will. She's kind of getting him to like open up and to do things and to actually go out of the house and experience things. And so she comes up with the plan to take him to that like crazy awesome resort, and so then to do all these crazy things. But then Will gets sick like few days before they're supposed to leave, so they have to cancel that. And so she's like, you know what, this is not going to be the end of it. I will still take him somewhere where he could feel alive. And so they decide to go to where do they go? It's like with their son. But her and Nathan, the other caregiver, they take Will so that he can still have a good time. And so Will is having a great time there, and Louisa's also having a great time. And so they finally have that moment like the day before they're gonna leave, and she's like, you know, this may not be the life that you had planned, this may not be the life that you even prefer, but you know, with me, with us, we could do this, and we can live happily, and we can be normal. And so Will basically, he breaks her heart when he's like, you know, this is not enough. Like, this is not enough for me. This is not the life that I want to live. And so poor Lou has her heart broken. And so she starts sobbing and she starts yelling at him. There's a bird right there. And she starts just being like, really? So I'm not enough for you? Like, everything that I've done for you, and still you're going to go through with it? And so she became very angry and very, very sad, but like mostly angry because she was sad. So after all these things, the reader's like, maybe Will change his mind. Maybe something will happen, but he will find a reason for living again. Maybe that reason was Lou, but it turns out it wasn't. And so when I was kind of spoiled before I read this, and I kind of got a hunch that he was going to die. And so my first thought was that, you know, he's going to go through with everything, but it's not going to be enough, and he's just going to continue to go with the assisted suicide. Anyway, so that was my first thought, and that's kind of what ended up happening. But then my second thought was like, what if I'm wrong, and like he actually does fall in love with her and agrees to live a life with her, and then he just dies anyways? That would be horrific. So I was like kind of between the two, but then when that happened, I was like, oh, I was right the first time. So the day passes, and they're going back home to London, and she's still angry with him. And then they get off the plane, and she doesn't want to talk to him. She doesn't even want to see him if he's gonna, you know, go through with this after everything. And so she goes home, and she like is very depressed. And then Trina comes and like is like, what's wrong? And she's like, nothing mattered. He's still gonna go through with it. And so she is just very, very sad. And so finally she gets a call from Camilla, Will's mom. It was like, he wants you here. Like, you need to come. And so she books the first flight out. She gets there, and she just has her last moments with Will. And they're just being with each other, like before he's gonna go through with this. And so the last thing that he says, and this, I was not expecting it, because you know, at the end of a book there's always more pages, and so you can never really tell if it's the last one. So I was reading the last paragraph before that the report. And so the last thing he's like, Clark, can you call my parents in? And then I turned the page and it was that, and I was just like, no. I was so sad. I read that and I like was leaning back and I literally was just like, no. That was definitely one of the moments where I became very sad and teary-eyed, and I was just like, that was not the ending that I was wanting or expecting of Will. But I mean, what else were there? They weren't going to spell out what happened with him. And but anyway, so then that happens, and then there's the report, which was sad, and then the epilogue, and it's about a month later, and Lou, she's in Paris, because Paris and this one cafe is the place where Will wanted to go the most. And so she goes, and she is sitting at the table at the restaurant where Will told her to go. She pulls out a letter that he wrote to her, and he's like, and with this letter, I was not expecting this letter. I have paid for everything. I paid for your schooling. I paid for, you don't need to worry about, at least, you don't have to worry about anything, at least for a while. He's like, I want you to live your life and to enjoy freedom and to enjoy living and new experiences. And I was just so emotional with that because he loved her so much. And one thing that I noticed was that Will never explicitly told her, I love you. I know that Lou told him, but he never spoke those words. He expressed it, but he never spoke those words, and I think he did that on purpose. And then that was basically the end of the book, and then she goes on to a perfume store at the end, and there's supposed to be another book about what happened after. I think it's called After You, and it just came out, something. I may or may not read it, I'm not sure. But then there's some questions for discussion at the end. It's like, if you were Louisa, would you have quit working for the trainers? If yes, at what point? Honestly, I probably would have done the same thing that Lou did, and like, been heartbroken at the end. Number 2, were you able to relate to the way Will felt after his accident? What about his outlook on life did you find the most difficult to understand or accept? I can't necessarily relate, but I can understand how he was feeling. And number 3, discuss the meaning of the novel's title. To whom do the me and the you refer? I was thinking about this. I'm not sure. Me before you. I think the me might be Will, and the you might be Louisa. I imagine it that way because like Will's like, I'm not gonna let you live your life for me before yours. I don't know. I just think Will's the me and Lou's the you. Number 4, Louisa often finds Mrs. Traynor cold and judgmental. Is there an appropriate way to behave in Mrs. Traynor's situation? You know what? Honestly, I think Mrs. Traynor behaved the way any mother would have. And to be quite honest, it's not necessarily like she was rude to Lou, but she was cold. But I mean, can you blame her? Number 5, what is your opinion of Mr. Traynor? Did it change after you read his side of the story? It definitely did. Yes, it did. Number 6, why is Louisa able to reach Will when so many others could not? Honestly, I think it was because she treated him like a person rather than somebody in a wheelchair, and she was able to see through all of his anger and all of his hatred, and she was able to bring him out and have him experience things that nobody else was, because like I said, she treated him like a person. She didn't pity him. She didn't feel sorry for him. She just wanted to help him be him again, and I felt like Will really respected and appreciated that, which is like why he fell in love with her. 7, were you surprised as Lou to learn of Will's plans? I honestly was and was not. In the back of my mind, I was not, because that's kind of was my thing since the beginning. Yeah, I was not surprised rather than being surprised. I did feel really bad for Lou just because she thought that she did something to change him, but in reality she really didn't. Number 8, compare Louisa's relationship with Prina to Will's relationship with Georgina. Do siblings know one another any better simply because they're related? Definitely not. People don't know people better because they're related. Trina and Louisa's relationship was different than Will and Georgina's. Will and Georgina could have been 2 perfect strangers. Number 9, would Patrick have asked Louisa to move in with him if he hadn't felt threatened by Will? Definitely not, because it had been years and he still hadn't. So yeah, no. If Louisa had never accepted her job with the trainers, where would her relationship with Patrick have gone? Honestly, I feel like if something similar like Will never happened to to Lou, as in something that didn't make her open her eyes and want to appreciate life more, she probably would have stayed with him, and she probably would have lived a, like, mediocre life with him. Number 10, discuss Louise's own secret ties to the castle. Would most girls in her situation have blamed themselves? Should Trina have behaved differently in the aftermath? I kind of discussed this earlier, and I think most girls do blame themselves when they really shouldn't. It is not your fault. It is, you shouldn't feel ashamed or guilty because of society, basically. It's not your fault. That was one thing that like I said, I really liked about this book, is that Will assured her, it's not your fault. You should not feel guilty. You should not feel ashamed. It is their wrong. As for Trina, I feel like she could have acted with a little bit more compassion, a little bit more sympathy. She kind of just like took care of her and took her home, and then they never talked about it again. So I feel like Trina, being the only one who knew, she could have acted with more compassion than she did. Number 11, what did you make of the way Lou's mother, Josie, judges Lou's decisions regarding Will? Is Josie's reaction fair? I feel like as a mother, Josie as a mother, her reaction was fair, especially since she didn't know about all this until like a day previous. So although I feel like her reaction wasn't necessarily the most practical, it was understandable. Number 12, before his accident, Will was a philanderer and a corporate raider who would probably never have given Louisa a second look. Why is it that people are so often unable to see what's truly important until they've experienced loss? I think it's because people take it for granted. Like, they become very comfortable with things the way they are, and they don't appreciate it until it's gone, which is like the cliched thing to say. Like, you become so comfortable with the way things are, and you can't imagine that anything would be different. So when something does happen, and when something does change, it's like, whoa, like, I want the old way back. Like, it makes you sit back and think about what you did have when it's gone. So quick few things about the movie. I haven't really talked about the movie yet. I loved the book way more than the movie, that's for sure. The movie, I loved all of the actors that were chosen for the characters. I loved Lou, I loved Will. They all portrayed the characters like perfectly. The movie was almost exactly the same as the book, except a big thing that they left out was what happened to Lou. They didn't put that in the movie, and I felt like that was a really big part of the story, and they took it out. So I don't know if that was just, I don't know why they did that, but that was definitely something that I noticed, that they just took it out, and I was like, I really loved all of Lou's outfits throughout the movie. That was really fun to look at. They also did something that I really liked in the movie more than the book. At the very end, when Will gets sick the first time and Lou tells him about the song that her dad used to sing, that's when he's like, tell me something good. And she sings that, and so at the end of the movie, when she's laying with him when he's in Switzerland, she's like, tell me something good, and then he starts singing the song, and I just thought that was the most beautiful thing, and that wasn't in the book, that was something that they put in the movie, and I really, really loved that like tied together everything, and it was so lovely. And yeah, so I think is that all I have to say about this? 5 out of 5 stars, such a good read, definitely recommend it. May or may not pick up after you. If you have read it, let me know if I should. I read that it's kind of like, doesn't really give you a whole, like, you know, conclude, like, it doesn't wrap everything up as nicely. I don't, you know what I'm saying. But yeah, I definitely need to pick up some more of her books, because I just really liked her writing style and her characters and everything, and so I should look up some more. If you have any recommendations of these, like, which one should I read? Right now, I am currently reading Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, because, like, obviously, I'm about 116 pages in. I have a whole bunch of tabs. You cannot see that, but a whole bunch of tabs. My review for this book script is going to be super long, so look forward to that in the near future. I am loving it. Let me just put that out there right now. I am loving it so much. So many emotions, so many feels, so many surprises. I am impressed with this so far. I know a lot of people were disappointed with it. I hope the ending does not disappoint me. I am thoroughly entertained and loving it so far, so I'm probably gonna love the rest of it. I think that's all I had to say about this. I don't know how long my review is. My reviews are usually super long. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought about this book. Did you give it the same rating? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Favorite character? Whatever and whatnot. Yeah, I think that is it for this review. Like I said, right now, please leave any comments down below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!